people got hung up on that and they're like, oh, it's taxed at a higher rate. It's like, no, it's just withheld at a higher rate. Like, it's hard because our tax system is complicated. It is confusing, but I want people to recognize that it's not taxed at 22%. It's just withheld at 22%. And then when you file your taxes, you're probably going to get a lot of it back.
Welcome to the Military Money Manual Podcast, where every episode is all about achieving financial independence in the military faster than before. We believe personal finance shouldn't be boring or intimidating. Building wealth can be simple, and financial freedom is the ultimate financial goal. Now, here's your hosts, Spencer and Jamie.
Welcome to the Military Money Manual Podcast. I'm Jamie here with Spencer Reese from militarymoneymanual.com. And today we have a special guest, Brandon Lovingier, the Enlisted Money Guy. You've probably seen him around if you're on Instagram or on the military channels of the social medias. And Brandon, the Enlisted Money Guy, shares a lot of great financial advice for our enlisted service members. He's an Army senior NCO and has a great perspective on a lot of topics. So Brandon, thanks for joining us today as we talk about continuation pay in the blended retirement system.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you guys taking this up as a topic because it's definitely one of those I think a lot of people don't know about or don't understand. And so I think the more that we can talk about it, more people will be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, why do you say that continuation pay is one of the least understood benefits? What's so challenging about understanding this portion of the BRS?
Yeah, I think one of the things, there's kind of some myths and things like that, and it's still kind of new, I guess. It was rolled out with the BRS, so it's, like I said, kind of new, but it's just one of those things that hasn't had a lot of emphasis on it. There's a lot of similarities, I guess you could say, as far as like it's a mid-career bonus. So a lot of times like senior leaders and stuff kind of think, oh, mid-career bonus, oh, that is that like the old Redux or something like that? And so then there ends up being some confusion and all that. And it's like, okay, no, I wish we could just forget that Redux ever existed, but this is a new thing.
Brandon, I saw on Reddit the other day, somebody was like, hey, I filed my paperwork with my S1 for my continuation pay. They told me it was going to take 30 days. And they said at first, they didn't even know what they were talking about when they walked in there. So are there like resources online that to like learn more about it? And like what paperwork, at least from the Army perspective, or, I mean, we can look on the Air Force side, but where do people kind of start with the whole process? Or is it automatic? That'd be a blessing right there.
Well, it's not automatic, unfortunately. You do have to request it. And each service does it a little bit differently. And so like for the Army, it was similar for me where a lot of S1s, a lot of your HR personnel, they're not really tracking it. And sometimes they don't really understand how to even request it, especially like for Army, with the switch over to IPSA and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's just going to be a continual problem for a while. But yeah, each service does have their own guidance and their own things like that. I'm actually working on an article to try and have like a roll up of all the links for all those. So I have my main continuation pay article that I sent you guys, but then I'm also working on another one for like all the service specific stuff because each service, they have to operate within the broader DoD guidelines as far as continuation pay goes, but each service can choose to change that, as they see fit. So they can use it as a, retention tool as needed.
And we'll put that link in the show notes for your continuation pay article on enlistedmoney.com. But can we back up a little bit and maybe for the listener who either just joined the military or maybe it's a leader who didn't sign up for BRS. They stand under High 3, and so they don't even know what continuation pay is. Where did it come from? And kind of just give us the background of it. Like, how much money are we talking about here? Is this a move the needle of the account? And another big question I've seen on Reddit recently is, can I just get it as a check or direct deposit to my bank account, or does it have to go into my thrift savings plan, my TSP?
So first, kind of history and background and kind of where it came from. So this was part of the rollout for the blended retirement system. Now, initially, it was a little bit different. It was much more limited, but then through changes which passed through the NDAAs in different years, they've expanded the program. And so now it allows for service members between 7 years and 12 years of service to request this continuation pay bonus, basically. So it's kind of like a create your own bonus kind of situation, but you do have to request it. And actually, even some services, like I believe the Air Force, you have to literally opt in or opt out. So there are some mechanisms for that, but not all the services. And unfortunately, I've heard of a lot of people missing it just because they didn't know about it. And really, the only people that are going to be eligible right now is people that opted in. They were already in service and then opted in, at the rollout of BRS in 2018. And so that's kind of where it all came from. But everybody now, the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of people that will be potentially eligible depending on the service. But yeah, so it's just very service dependent, I guess.
And there is a guard and reserve. It changes the amount that they get, but both active duty guard and reserve are eligible for some form of continuation pay, correct?
Right. Yeah. And actually, it's I think maybe a little bit better for some of the guard and reserve. So, like, say for instance, for the Army, the guard and reserve, they actually get a little bit more, as far as the base, multiplier right now. So I think they're at four times base pay, whereas 2.5 times base pay for active duty. So that's potentially for guard and reserve. That's a huge benefit.
Can you explain what you mean by that 2.5 or 4 times base pay? Is that an annual amount, monthly amount? And I see, like, when you, on enlistedmoney.com on your article, you have a really nice graphic of are you eligible, how much money, and then you have a commitment afterwards, the time on it. How do I know exactly what that multiplier means and how to figure out how much money it could be for someone that's listening to the show?
Right. So that's a really important thing to distinguish is depending on the service, that may change. And so I'll kind of talk about broader context first. So the calculation of the base pay. So within the DoD limits, it's between 2.5 times base pay all the way up to potentially 13 times base pay for active duty. And then it's 0.5 times what your active base monthly pay would be, up to 6 times monthly base pay for guard and reserves. And that's by your monthly base pay, not annual base pay. So, if your base pay was, $4,000 and the multiplier is 3, then that's a $12,000 bonus. So it just kind of depends. But once again, that is the left and right limits for the DoD policy. And so within that, the different services can change what they want to do. And actually, there's some pretty big changes coming up for Army personnel. So it's really important for them to look at this as well, because next year they've put out a plan to change it to where it's between 8 and 9 years. Right now, it's between 8 and 12 years for Army, but next year they're going to shrink that down and say that it's going to be between 8 and 9 years. But we don't know exactly what that's going to be yet. And that's kind of another key point, I guess, is that it can change, just like bonus messages and things like that. The services, they can change them whenever they want to.
So I see why people are confused, because I just Googled like USAF continuation pay BRS, and none of those links say what the Air Force's current policy or multiplier is. There's a lot of .gov, there's some DoD references, and there's even some myairforcebenefits.us.af.mil. And so for an airman looking for BRS data, it's not there. Like, I can't find it.
And it's funny because, like, even like, say for instance, the Army this year, they didn't even give out their continuation pay policy for calendar year 24 until March, I think like March 11th or something like that. So we're already, we were already a quarter of the way through the year before the Army ever published their annual information. So now I was told that the reason why that is because that they have to have the budget approved before they can actually put that out. So it makes sense. It does cost money, but yeah, it's definitely really difficult to try and plan around that. I actually do have, I'll make sure and share it with you guys. I do have a link that somebody sent me for Air Force specific. You do have to have a CAT card, but I'll send you guys that link so you can pop that in there as well.
Yeah, Jamie, I think to your point, I don't understand like why there isn't like a one-stop shop. It's like this year, the 2024 continuation pay bonus is, and I think maybe a lot of this is, like you were saying, Brandon, it is a relatively new program, and there's no organization that's more resistant to change than the Department of Defense, and especially the personnel shop. So I think, especially as, what will it be, like maybe 2030, when, kind of everybody has, hits their continuation pay at 12 years. I think that's when we'll start to really see the processes probably finally catch up, where it'll probably become automatic at that point, because it is sad to hear that people miss out on this because either A, they don't know, B, they're too busy, C, their paperwork doesn't get processed fast enough. And that would be incredibly sad if you signed up for this program and then you weren't able to access the benefits of it, because the continuation pay can really make the difference between the high 3, where you're getting a 50% pension after 20 years, and the BRS, where you're getting a 40% pension after 20 years. So if you get that continuation pay invested into your thrift savings plan, then that can grow for the next 20 or 30 years by the time you hit retirement, and that can become a significant portion of your retirement income. One other question, I asked it earlier, but it was like a multi-part question, was thrift savings plan or just direct deposit? You can get either, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, you can put it in your TSP, but you don't have to. And actually, if you want it to go in your TSP, you have to make sure that it's set up to do so in MyPay before you request it. So I was told to make sure that it is all reflected and all that, do that a month prior to requesting continuation pay. Now, if it goes into your regular paycheck, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it'll automatically get paid out just like any other kind of bonus.
Do you know in MyPay, is there a specific line for continuation pay, or is it lumped into incentive pay or special pay or one of the other categories?
I don't know. I know there's not a separate one for it as far as like continuation pay, but I believe it would be your special pay and bonuses category. But I'd have to double check. Actually, that's a good question.
And do I have to take it all at once, or can I split it up? If I wanted to say increase my paycheck over the next year, can I take 12 equal payments or any options like that?
You can actually. So you can choose between either a lump sum or up to 4 annual payments. And so those annual payments would be on the anniversary of when you requested it. And that's a really important consideration to think about, especially if you're dual military or you have additional income or something like that, or you're getting another enlistment bonus or sign-on bonus or commissioning bonus, whatever, at the same time. Yeah, you might not want to do a lump sum just for the tax, just for tax purposes. So you may want to spread that out. But the other thing too, depending on where you are with tax brackets, and I don't want to get like too down the rabbit hole of taxes, but with the possible sunset of Tax Cuts and Jobs Act here in a couple of years, that potentially could weigh in there too if you anticipate being in a different tax bracket. So definitely a lot of tax things to think about, but overall, you're only going to be able to optimize so much of that.
Just a quick note from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back to the show.
It's no secret Spencer and I are both huge fans of the Thrift Saving Plan, the military's version of the 401k retirement plan. We've both been investing in the TSP for over 14 years and are thrilled to announce we've consolidated all the information you need to know into a new course called the Confident TSP Investing Course.
That's right. The course is a comprehensive guide to navigating the TSP, breaking it down to easy, bite-sized chunks that lay out the basics of the thrift savings plan, the funds available, and the investing strategies so you can build wealth while you serve.
We both know what it's like to be a beginner and to be overwhelmed with all the information that's out there about investing in the TSP. Head over to militarymoneymanual.com/TSP, Tango Sierra Papa, to find our simple breakdown of all you need to know. You get lifetime access, and we'll have a growing library of content. And one of my favorite parts about the course is that for every course we sell, we're going to be donating one to an E4 or below.
Yeah, I love that feature of the course, Jamie. So if you're an officer, an NCO, a senior NCO out there, and you purchase a course, first of all, thank you. And also know that you're helping a fellow service member, a sailor, a soldier, a Marine, an airman, a guardian, a Coast Guardsman, E4 or below, take one step closer to their financial success.
The link's in the show notes, or head over to militarymoneymanual.com/TSP, where you can sign up for the Confident TSP Investing course. Now, back to the show.
Brandon, I wanted to run through a couple myths. You've got this collection of continuation pay myths on enlistedmoney.com in your continuation pay article. So I'm just going to run through them, and you can provide as much color as you want on it. But I see these on Reddit. I see these on social media quite a bit. But let's start with number one. Continuation pay reduces my pension. Is that true or false?
Very false. So yeah, once again, that's one of those that I think comes from people equating a mid-career bonus to the old career status bonus redux program, which was at the same time completely gone. So that program no longer exists. Thank God. It was a terrible program. Yeah, it was not in the best interest of service members, in my opinion. So that is 100% false. It does not affect your pension at all. It doesn't affect any other bonuses or anything you're eligible for either. So this is a separate thing. It's completely separate from any other pay.
And I think that's more of a confusion on the senior leader side than the younger side, because the senior leaders remember what Redux is, but the new kids coming up, they're like, well, I don't know what Redux is. So that's important, I think. And this is important too. Like, even if you're not in the BRS and you're in the high 3, that probably means you're an NCO, a senior NCO, an officer, and you're in a leadership position. You need to know about this program, and you need to stop spreading these myths and these falsehoods to your troops. I see it all the time when people are like, I'm in the BRS, I'm not getting a pension. That's what my NCO said. It's like, oh my gosh, like, please do your troops a service, get educated on this program, and stop telling people that they're not eligible for a pension because they're in the BRS. It's just false. It's just completely false. You're getting a 40% pension after 20 years, and you can make up the difference. I ran this calculation on my website when I was deciding whether to switch to the BRS or stay in the high 3. I decided to switch to the BRS. I said, look, even at, I can't remember what interest rate I used, but even at like a 5% return, I can make up the difference in, over an investing lifetime with the matching. So the BRS is like, it's still a solid retirement program. And I dare you to go find any other jobs program or employment in America that's going to offer you a 40% pension after 20 years of service. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, if you use all the tools that are given to you with BRS, it can be an excellent program, especially if you're not planning to stay the whole 20 or whatnot. And that's the other thing too. Like, you don't even have to stay to retirement if you take continuation pay. You just have to do the 4-year service commitment, and that's it. So you don't have to stay to retirement either. But the common response I get with senior leaders or pretty much anybody is like, hey, have you heard about the changes coming for continuation pay? They're like, what's continuation pay?
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on a second.
So myth number 1, continuation pay will reduce my pension. That's false. Continuation pay does not reduce your pension. Let's talk about myth number 2, and then we'll talk about one more, and then we'll move on to something else with continuation pay. But myth number 2, continuation pay is a re-enlistment bonus. Is that true or false?
That's also false, but it is a type of bonus. And so, I do hear that a lot, that I've heard people say, oh, well, if you take continuation pay, then you can't get your regular bonus, or you have to choose, or whatever. It is not a reenlistment bonus or any other type of bonus. So it is a whole separate thing. Definitely a different entitlement.
Yeah, and I know, like, for like Jamie and in my career field as Air Force pilots, it usually lines up the continuation pay bonus with the pilot retention bonus. And so I've got guys, messaging me like, is this true? Like, I can get, $50,000 bonus for my pilot retention, and on top of it, I can get, 2.5x my base pay. And I'm like, yep, that's 100% accurate. Like, it is, like, it just lines up right there that you can double dip and you can get both bonuses, and it really does align the incentives, for people to stay in at a critical point in their career.
So it's not a reenlistment bonus, but there is a commitment to it, which I think is why some people are confused about it. You do have to stay for some kind of obligation afterwards, correct?
Correct. Yeah. But that's concurrent with like any other, active duty service obligation. So say, for instance, you may have to reenlist or extend in order to meet the requirements, but it's not like 4 years on top of what you reenlisted for or something like that. So that's another point of confusion too. So if you say, for instance, if you reenlist for 4 years and at the same time say, oh, I'm going to take my continuation pay, it's not 4 years on top of what you reenlisted for. So that's an important distinction too. And now, one thing too, just like a bonus though, you are going to have the taxes withheld. So you still have that mandatory 22% withholding that's going to come out of it.
I think that's a important consideration there too, is people think of that withholding as that is the taxes that I'm paying on this bonus. And that's just completely false. It's a withholding. So basically the IRS or the DOD is saying, okay, we're going to hold that portion back to 22%, send it to the IRS. When you file your tax return, then we'll work it all out. And for most military service members, you're going to get half of that, maybe even 3/4 of that, maybe the entire thing back, depending on if you were deployed to a combat zone. And so that's a fantastic, benefit there, that you just have to recognize that the 22% tax withholding is just a withholding. The IRS is going to hang on to your money for you, not pay you any interest on it. Sorry. But when you file your tax return in, the following year, you're going to get probably a large portion of that money back. And so I think, people got hung up on that and they're like, oh, it's taxed at a higher rate. It's like, no, it's just withheld at a higher rate. Like, it's hard because our tax system is complicated. It is confusing, but I want people to recognize that it's not taxed at 22%. It's just withheld at 22%. And then when you file your taxes, you're probably going to get a lot of it back.
Yep.
Brandon, okay, so in a roundabout way here, we've covered myth number 1, the continuation pay will reduce my pension. We decided that was false. Myth number 2, continuation pay is a reenlistment bonus. It's false, but is a type of bonus, but it can be combined with other bonuses. So that's a fantastic benefit there for a lot of career fields that do get reenlistment bonuses. Finally, myth number 3, Department of Defense allows for, let's say, 12x monthly base pay as your bonus, so my service must offer it. Is that true or false?
Also false. Well, could be true, but that's dependent on the service. And so, and that's one thing too that, like Jamie mentioned earlier, you could Google continuation pay for X, Y, and Z, and you might get, all kinds of different answers about continuation pay up to whatever. And we see, up to 13 times, like, okay, hey, I can get, like, no, hold on. Don't get too excited. So it's dependent on each individual service. And so, like, say, for instance, right now, it could be as little as 7 years time in service that you could request it up to 12. Well, none of the services have updated their continuation pay since the most recent NDAA. So all of them at the least, or you have to have at least 8 years in to request it. But most services, actually, it's right, right around that 12-year mark.
Hey, Brandon, I just want to run a couple of math problems, some examples through for the listeners. So first, let's say I pulled up the pay charts for an E6 active duty with over 8 years of service. Their base pay is $42.52 a month. So all I do is I take that base pay and multiply it by, right now, 2.5, and I get $10,630. That's the pre-tax bonus. Is that accurate? Am I doing that right?
I think so. I'm a little upset you're making me do public math, but yeah, 10,630. Yep.
Well, trust the calculator. I mean, just the numbers. And then for, let's say, an 04 active duty over 10 years, I multiplied their base pay of $86.84 times 2.5, and I get $21,710 as the pre-tax amount. So just to show the example of all you need to do to figure out how much you're eligible for, if you're active duty right now, 2.5 for all of the branches that we're tracking, at least 2.5 times your monthly base pay, and then that's the potential lump sum. Or split up to 4 payments, and that's pre-tax amount. So that's how you calculate how much you could get out of this.
Correct. And like you said, I mean, you'll have the 22% withholding that'll come out of it as well.
Earlier, you mentioned a big change coming for the Army. Can you just recap that one more time and why it's so important that people understand what's coming up with continuation pay for our soldiers?
Right. Yeah. There is a big change coming for the Army, or at least, they're saying that it's coming. So, and this is kind of confusing because there's 2 memos floating around right now that are both true, but it makes it a little confusing. So 2023, they released a memo that was a continuation pay calendar year 25 plan. And, it said that they're going to change from 8 to 12 years to be 8 to 9 years. And people that I've talked to, they said that is still going to be the case. They may actually make it 7 to 9 years, but that's their plan right now. Now, the reason why that's important is, like, say, for instance, if you were waiting to try and get a promotion or something like that, and you're eligible right now, we're between 8 and 12 years, and you wanted to wait till your 10 or 12 year mark to maximize, get a little extra, maybe you're close to a promotion. If you had 8 years time in service as of January 1st of this year, 2024, if they make that change, then to where it's only between 8 and 9 years of service, then January 1st of next year, 2025, they will no longer be eligible. So they're going to miss out. And so I, obviously don't want that to happen, but there's really no way to know exactly what the Army is going to do until they release it. So, the other services can change it too. It's a little bit difficult to try and, I guess, wait it out or anything like that. So I would definitely say if you know for sure you're going to stay and you have 8 years time in service, you definitely need to look at it. Yeah. And strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. Now you could, like, say, for instance, if you didn't hit 8 years in until now, you could wait and see if they drop that and have a higher multiplier, which chances are they might. The way they're doing it is based off of end strength and stuff like that. So, typically the Army's low on personnel, so it might end up being higher, but you're at a risk because if they could say no, it's not. We're only doing between 8, 9, or they could even say between 7 and 8. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. So I'll just say, wait at your own risk.
Brandon, I feel a lot smarter now in continuation pay. I think you've got probably one of the best articles on the web right now at enlistedmoney.com. So that's where I'm going to point people to until I get a better article up on my own site. But enlistedmoney.com, continuation pay benefit, fantastic summary, really walks through a lot of the myths and misunderstandings about the program. So if you're a leader listening to this and you need to understand this for your troops, this is a great place to go check out so you can understand the decisions that your troops are facing when, whether to accept this or not. Really, the only downside is the service obligation. So just make sure that you understand the service obligation and that you know what you're getting yourself into. But if you're in the blended retirement system, this is a great way to get some money into your thrift savings plan, some additional money into your thrift savings plan for retirement. Or, maybe you're maxing out your thrift savings plan every year and you're like, I just need to look out for priority number 1 and I'm going to take this as cash, get it into my direct deposit and, pay down some debt, maybe use it for a down payment for a house, whatever. But it's a great opportunity for you to get some additional cash into your life if you're at the right point in your career in the military. So, Brandon, where can people find you on the socials and online other than your website?
Yeah. Once again, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing your article whenever you get it. I'll definitely share that as well. I think the more of us that are talking about it, the better. But yeah, if people want to find me, connect with me, I hang out the most on Instagram at Enlisted Money Guy, and you can also shoot me an email. It's hello@enlistedmoney.com. But yeah. Either way, I'm around, so let me know. And once again, I really appreciate you guys having me back on the show.
Well, thanks for being here. And listener, if you got value out of the show, 5-star review, Spotify or Apple Podcasts is the easiest way to say thanks. And you can also reach us Instagram at Military Money Manual or podcast at militarymoneymanual.com. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Military Money Manual podcast.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.